Welcome to Ignite to Impact, a weekly podcast that explores what it takes to make your community, our nation, and the world a better place. You've tuned in to be inspired and enlightened as we pull back the curtain and dive into intimate and energetic conversations with achievers and doers. We are talking with leaders who are in the trenches making phenomenal changes through business, nonprofits, education, and the arts. Our goal? To encourage, motivate, and challenge you to go to the next level in leadership. Now, here's your host, Master Leadership Strategist, Dr. Geneva Williams. So, let's ignite to impact.
Hi there, this is Dr. Geneva, and welcome to Ignite to Impact, where we have conversations about making the world a much better place. And so every week we bring inspiring stories, people from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, teachers, professors, nonprofit executives, artists, just everyday old folk, unleashing their leadership, solving problems in their communities, creating change and leaving impact, fighting hunger, finding ways to end homelessness, helping children learn to read, working to eliminate poverty, working on education, race relations, transportation, crime. So we'll travel around the country, learn what real leaders do day to day, how they ignite collaboration, how they use their leadership to create community change, turning bad situations around and still staying excited about their own journey in leadership. And we'll discover how these leaders build legacy to create everlasting impact. Now, leadership comes in many forms and shapes. You know I believe that. And I will tell you, it doesn't matter who you are or what you do or where you live. Everyone has the ability to lead. Leadership is about influencing others to do something, to act, follow a dream, complete a task. Everyone is called to lead in some way, sometime in life. So we're delighted to bring you those leaders who are change agents and making things better than they found them. And so when I have guests who I'm particularly delighted to share the mic with, and I know you'll find really cool, I like to just give you a little brief background and then let the conversation bring out all the wonderfulness of my guest. And so I have with me today Dr. Cleamon Moorer, who is an all-around person of interest and leadership. He flunked out of Kettering University in 1995, returned twice as a readmitted student in 1996, and as a professor in 2013. Now, see, what more can I say? But I'll say a little bit more. That experience and others brings him to us to talk about from failure to promise, because clearly he has reached promise in many aspects. Though when you talk with leaders like him, I'm sure he'll tell us he's not finished yet. He has a mission to encourage, mentor, and motivate students and educators to achieve great promise that results in improved global leadership and citizenship. He has a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides scholarships, and since its inception has granted over $50,000, now that's a lot of money, in grants and scholarships to students and educators. And he has them write a failure to promise scholarship essay, and I'm sure learn so much from that commentary. He realized the joy of building a library for K through 6 students and providing scholarship dollars to dozens of students to meet their tuition and college expenses. And I'm not the only one who thinks he's a hero, who thinks he's a master leader, because Black Enterprise just recently, in fact, I think about a month ago, cited him as a modern man of distinction, which is a very prestigious award, and followed both the Michigan Chronicle and Crane's Detroit Business, who cited him as one of the most influential 40 under 40. So, you see, we have, as I said to you, I love bringing master leaders, folk who are using all they've got to create impact. So welcome, Clem.
Thank you, Dr. Geneva. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening.
I'm just so delighted to have you, and you know, of course, I could go on and on. There's pages and pages of stuff here that talks about you and your career and all of the things that you've been through. But, you know, I thought it would be better to have you share with us
Yes, ma'am.
what's happened in your life. So tell us, what was Clem like growing up?
Oh, Clem was a troublemaker in grade school.
Oh, just the type of story I want to hear. So tell me everything.
If you can imagine that. You know, I grew up on the west side of Detroit, on Schaefer. Schaefer Road, right in between Chicago and Orange Line.
Okay.
Attended Detroit Public Schools, you know, elementary, middle, and as well as high school. So middle school was Charles R. Drew. Went to Drew, went to Parker for elementary, and King High on the east side.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Attended church on Tyreman Avenue, Tyreman and Roselawn, True Love Missionary Baptist Church. So grew up in a Christian home, but I was still somewhat of the knucklehead, if you will. But my parents continued to bring me up, you know, the right way, and instill some values that I was able to build upon as I matured through my adolescence.
So growing up, now you said you were a troublemaker.
Yes.
I think I heard that now, but I noticed how you skipped over that and got right into the beauty of having wonderful parents who brought you up in a Christian way.
Absolutely. Yes.
But, you know, I want to hear about why you described yourself as a troublemaker, because what we know is that it's often those times of controversy, conflict, chaos
yes, ma'am.
that bring us to, you know, golden light.
Absolutely.
So what was it you was doing when you was young that got you in that trouble?
Well, you know, I think I just had a little more energy than the second grade or third grade classroom was built for.
Okay.
I mean, the idea of sitting still, you know, 6 to 8 hours versus being in a position to create and to express myself by way of performing arts wasn't always there until maybe, say, 4th or 5th grade when I got in the drama club. I think that was somewhat of a turn when I had an opportunity to read some of the plays written by Langston Hughes and began to perform. I think that really turned the curve for me. So, you know, taking that energy that was misguided and misdirected and putting in something creative was just about that turnaround for me. So just general mischief until I learned how to focus those energies.
Yeah, so you were just growing up, just
there it is.
Enjoying life, just being a kid
to the fullest.
And that's right, and then found an outlet, found a passion.
Indeed, yes, ma'am.
And do you think at that age, growing up, you knew that you were going to be a leader?
I think I did, right? I do, because I can remember very clearly. It was 6th grade, right? And my days at Drew, and I found myself somewhat of an outcast or casted out. I can give a quick little anecdote there. we were told, by our homeroom teacher that if we had any problems in any of our classes, just let her know and use our best judgment. Mm-hmm. So I took her up on that offer one day, and I used what I considered to be my best judgment, and it sort of got me in trouble. And I reminded her in front of the class that, hey, you told us to use our better judgment, and I did the best I could. And then she recanted, as to say she didn't say it, right? And said, hey, did I say that? And there were students in the class that agreed with her. No, you didn't say that. I don't know why Clem was making that up. And I kind of felt like then that if I knew what was right to do, mm-hmm. regardless of whether the masses agreed with it at the time, then there will be a few. There will be a few that will certainly follow what they know to be right and what they know to be true. So I believe that might have been an inflection point where I realized that doing what's right and taking a stand does create a pathway toward increased leadership as life goes on, as life progresses.
Yeah, that's so that was a pivotal point, as
yes,
you recall it.
Yes, it certainly was.
Okay, all right.
And who knew a host of so many other pivotal points would soon there follow.
Right. And so what do you think growing up was the biggest lesson that you learned? Particularly the biggest leadership lesson or lesson about leading.
Yes, ma'am. I would have to say that one of the biggest lessons that I learned growing up as related to leadership is that leaders oftentimes take the road that is less traveled or that is least traveled. Leaders don't necessarily look for the beaten path, but they beat their way through into a new path. Mm-hmm. And, a great example of that was my opportunity and choice to attend King High School versus some of the other high schools in the area. So I did have an opportunity to go to King, which required me to take about 3 buses when I wasn't dropped off. So the Schaefer bus to the Grand River bus. And then once you get downtown and what they refer to as campus marches now, then I had an option to, take Larned or to take the Jefferson bus or even the Lafayette bus to get over to King. But it required that during the winter months, I left home when it was dark, and I also returned home when it was dark. But it was a path that I believed would have worked out better for me than others. And I also would say that I believe leaders seek the advice and seek the wise counsel of others, because when the path is not easy, it's easier to retreat. So you have your friends saying, man, why are you taking all those buses, why are you taking all those courses, et cetera, but if you got someone wise in your life that tells you to stick with it, heeding to the wise words of others is very important.
So what happened at Kettering?
Oh, at GMI. I went to GMI in 1994, and it was somewhat of a culture shock for me. The idea of taking 5 or 6 classes at one time, and in college, classes are equated to semester hours, so the amount of time that you're in class. So in class, I was scheduled to be there for 23 hours across different courses. And when you're outside of class, you should be, devoting at least 2 to 3 hours to your studies. So that could easily take us up to about 72 hours if we, or 69 hours if we go 3 times 23. So that was quite a workload, quite an adjustment in terms of the quantity of the hours to study, and then the quality of the material. The material was quite complex for me. Big adjustment. First semester wasn't as bad as those subsequent semesters to follow within that first year and a half. So I completed my freshman semester in summer of '94 and went to work at General Motors Truck and Bus. I was working in Troy in materials engineering, had a great internship rotation, went back to classes in winter of '95, January. Had a pretty decent semester, but I went to work again spring, But the summer semester of 1995 was another pivotal point where I had 6 courses, and out of 6 courses that summer, I failed 4 of the courses. Yep, I failed tremendously, if you will. Went back to work in the fall of 1995, and that's where the vice president of academic affairs got in touch with me to let me know that my grades weren't sufficient for continued progression down the degree track. And they gave me some options, Dr. Geneva, 3 options. You can write a letter of appeal and explain, what went wrong, or you could leave and never return, or maybe you could take some time off and go to a different institution to make up courses that you failed. So it was traumatizing to an extent. Lost the coveted internship at General Motors, and because my letter of appeal just was not good enough. So I was dismissed. Yes, ma'am. I was dismissed in the fall of 1995 from Kettering University.
But then you returned as a professor. So tell us what happened in between.
There's an evolution. There has to be an evolution, right? So I went home to talk to my parents about this failure, and the conversation, or my dad led a conversation about the importance of learning from your failure and getting back up and going again.
Yes.
Because if you don't get back and go again, then maybe they're right. Maybe you don't fit, you don't deserve to be there. And I couldn't accept that one. Really, I couldn't. So I started attending classes at community college. Went back to Fairlane Town Center in Dearborn, get a job at the shoe store. I worked at shoe stores when I was in high school. Humbling experience, but I did get in a good academic standing at the community college, transferred courses back in.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Ended up earning that first degree in 1999 and went off to Chicago, became an engineer, pursued more degrees, met my lovely wife, Nicole. We started a family. We now have 4 boys. And things were great. I was able to retire my parents from their collision shop on Livernois, moved them into a home in the Chicagoland area, and just continued to progress. No doubt about it. Got into teaching in 2002, and I think I was about 26. I was 26 years of age whenever I started teaching. So some teaching and consulting, and my responsibilities continued to grow. And as they grew, also my skill set grew. Life threw a couple of curves. God decided to call my dad home to be with him August 8th of 2007. And then shortly thereafter, 3 years later, August 19th, 2010, my mother went home to be with Christ. So challenging time, you know, but I knew that I did retire them. I was able to be the type of son that did not have any guilt, even though I did fail and was a knucklehead back in elementary school. I didn't have any guilt whatsoever. A little grief, but no guilt, knowing that their legacy and their lives live on through me. Had a great opportunity to come back to Michigan. Yes, ma'am, and took that opportunity. Yes, absolutely. Started a foundation while in Illinois. And
so tell us about the foundation.
Yes, ma'am. So as a young professor, students would often ask me, how did I get to that point so early in life, considering my background? As a consultant, folks would wonder, where did your knowledge base come from to help us with our problems and the like? So I knew that my story and the challenges that God blessed me to overcome needed to be shared with a wider audience. And the idea of the foundation birthed from that realization that if we can provide scholarships to students, because financial problems were one of my challenges while at GMI, if we could provide grants to educators in the classroom, because part of the challenges that I've had in high school were that perhaps some of the materials and resources that would have helped me from a learning and teaching standpoint for my instructors, the materials just weren't there. So when you can identify the problem, you start to really brainstorm on, well, how can you help? How can you help that problem? So we founded the foundation to provide scholarships and to provide grants, and based it off of proceeds from the sale of From Failure to Promise, the memoir. Yes, ma'am. So
okay, so you wrote a book.
Yes, ma'am. I had to tell the story.
Had to tell the story.
Yes, ma'am.
And then probably some other products that came with it too.
Absolutely. Yes,
and then
ma'am.
you took those proceeds.
Yes, ma'am.
And created this foundation.
Absolutely. Yes,
and
ma'am.
so how many scholarships have you given out?
Since 2011, so we founded the organization in 2010 as a sole proprietorship, registered 501c3 in 2012. Since 2011, since running the scholarship program through this year, 2017, we have awarded 25 students with scholarship monies. Yes,
and
ma'am.
then you also give support and help to educators.
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am. So we prompt instructors in the K through 12 or not-for-profit that's involved in education. We prompt them to give us ways that they would use tenets of From Failure to Promise to help students in literacy, science, technology, engineering, and math. And then, teachers write very, very good proposals. Yes, ma'am.
So give us a little flavor. I mean, this is so cool.
Yes, ma'am.
You're helping students and educators.
Absolutely.
And you, by telling your story and getting that out there, so you're helping a lot of people just by doing that.
Absolutely.
But then you're just reinvesting back into the community through your foundation. So I know there's got to be a story or two of one of the young people you've helped or an educator where you've made a difference in his or her classroom.
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
you share something with us?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So starting with an educator in 2012, we received a grant proposal from a library director in Dayton, Ohio, which happens to be my mother's hometown. And she shared with us that the school, the K through 6 school, did not have a library. It was a new charter school, Dayton Horizon Science Academy, and they didn't have a library. So we didn't believe that, right? A school without a library is like a restroom without toilets and sinks, right? So we went to the school and actually saw that there was no library. Yes, ma'am. So it was on at that point for us to solicit donations from not only our board members but from other donors, and then to run as many book drives as possible, put our own dollars into the facilities to create a library at that school. So in 2013, we were able to cut a ribbon. March 8th, actually, 2013, we cut the ribbon on the Doris Jean Moorer Memorial Library in Dayton, Ohio. So a son trying to stay true to a promise. You named that
after your mom?
Yeah, indeed I did.
Oh, how wonderful.
And the little piece there, Dr. Geneva, was in 2007 after Dad passed. I knew I was going to dedicate the memoir to him. So when Mom was passing, I was finishing the first version of the book. And she said, I can't believe you dedicated this to your dad and, not me, I think you loved him more than me, etc. So I said, Mom, one day. And I didn't know that she was nearing death that summer. That summer we had that conversation. I said, one day, something will come along, I'm sure, an opportunity, and I'll be able to dedicate something to you.
So now there's a library
in Dayton, Ohio.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is.
That's a beautiful thing. And so if it were not for your gift, your generosity, there wouldn't be a library there.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, for those young people. Yes. So so tell us a little bit about your students.
Yes, ma'am. So this scholarship contest has always been open to high school seniors and college students. So over the years, you get to know students. Because the top prize is $10,000, and we spread out the disbursements throughout a student's duration of school. So in the event a freshman wins or a sophomore student wins during their second year, we're able to get to know that student over the course of 2 to 3 or 4 years, and then seeing their progress. So I can think of Olamide, who is now a scientist as well as an executive at Kellogg Corporation on the west side of the state in Michigan. And just to think that our contribution of whether it was a $1,500 first prize when we first started or a $10,000 top prize now that we've been several years into it, just to know that in some way, shape, or form, we were able to positively contribute to her pursuit of her full promise. So there's alumni, there's Faithful, Lokoi, there's dozens of students that reach out, Mike Brown, so all around
I love it.
the country.
And so, Clem.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so why'd you do this?
I knew.
I mean,
yeah.
And I ask it because,
yes, ma'am.
Clearly, you've been on a TED Talk.
Yes, ma'am.
You've been cited as Black Enterprise's Modern Man.
Yes, ma'am.
You've been noted by Crane's Detroit Business, influential 40 under 40 group.
Yes, ma'am.
You've got this story. That's a beautiful story from failure to promise, and I'm assuming you making a nice piece of change off your audio books and your TED Talks and all those things that you got going on.
Yes, ma'am.
Why you turn that money over, put it in a foundation?
Yes, ma'am.
For scholarships for young people that you don't even know.
See, that's the beauty of it, Dr. Geneva. Okay, as a faculty member, as a professor, when I first started teaching, I would get students to give me reviews, and they would talk, and even the ones I wouldn't ask, what did you think about the lecture? What do you think about my classes? Would get online and post things on Rate My Professor, etc. And as I would read students' comments, right, where a student would say, hey, if you ever get an opportunity, you need to hear Dr. Moore. You need to hear Dr. Moore's story. You need to hear him teach. I knew then that I needed to turn the world into my classroom, simply put. And I also realized that if I was going to create true legacy, right, that I needed to find a way to impact, to influence, and to inspire others. So my story and what God has blessed me to be able to accomplish should not just stay within my immediate circle or my immediate realm of influence. I knew in my heart of hearts that this was something that could inspire people of all ages, of all races, and in any and various parts of the world. Yes, ma'am. So giving it back and paying it forward is very important to me.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yes, ma'am.
And you mentioned legacy. Is that important to you?
Oh, it's very important.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Because it lives on. It outlasts you. It's evidence that you were here. It assures that you made the most of the life that God gave you to live. If you think of any of your heroes, past, present, or even future heroes, no matter what their vocation was, when Jesse Owens went in 1936 and won the Olympics, was the fastest man in the world, the stories of that continue to impact and influence and inspire us. So the legacy that we've been able to inherit from others, we didn't do anything to earn it, but we have a responsibility to add to it, to build upon it, and to create our own and pass that on for future generations.
So if there was a call to action to those in our listening audience that would, kick up leadership.
Yes, ma'am.
Just make it all that it's supposed to be. Ignite the fire, create legacy. This call to action. What would you say? My
call to action to people would be to not focus on what they don't have, but to focus on what they do have. And then that they do have, share that portion. Share that portion of what they do have so that others can grow from it, others can build. Because once you empty out your well, once you empty out your cabinets, best believe that the God that blessed you to be able to give will refill your cabinet. He'll refill your vessel in a way that you can continue to give and to build. And that's certainly a way that I would ignite impact, by calling on people to give of themselves selflessly, and knowing that indeed they will reap what they've sown into the hearts and the minds and souls of others. Well, Dr. Clem, you are doing it. I'm doing my best. Yes, ma'am.
You really are. You're one of our stars when it comes to igniting.
Yes, ma'am.
Through your words, through your TED Talks, through your books, through your story about failure.
Yes, ma'am.
To promise.
Oh, yes.
You're igniting because you're showing the torch, showing the way to students and educators, and you're doing it out your own pocketbook.
Yes, ma'am.
Which taking that treasure that you have, it's about the time, the talent, the treasure, that combination.
Yes, ma'am.
And putting it all in there.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
That's how we're going to change this world.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
And
yes,
I know that I saw from your interview from Black Enterprise.
Yes, ma'am.
That the best advice that you ever received came from your dad.
Yes, ma'am.
Where he said, "Son, don't stop on the hill. Go all the way to the mountaintop."
Indeed, yes, ma'am.
And you fulfilling his legacy. You know that. Right?
I believe that, Dr. Geneva. My role as dean right now is somewhat of a hilltop experience,
yes.
but I got my eyes on a college or university presidency.
Yes. Yeah, and I saw that too.
Yes, ma'am.
And just see it and believe it.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Because and let me know, because I want to send kids to that college or university where you are president.
Very soon. It's
right.
coming very soon.
All right, and then we're going to have you back too.
All right.
And continue
yes, ma'am.
The story of how you ignite to impact. Dr. Clem, Dr. Cleamon Moorer, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Geneva.
You've been listening to Ignite to Impact. Your host is Dr. Geneva Williams, an award-winning executive facilitator and master leadership strategist. Dr. Geneva is dedicated to inspiring others to get their leadership on and equipping the next generation with leadership tools and tips to help make the world a better place. Sign up to download Dr. Geneva's mini ebook on leadership. Get the show notes, links, and other resources at drgenevaspeaks.com. That's drgenevaspeaks.com. Thanks for listening. Please share the podcast to those in your community via Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or Google+, and leave us a 5-star review in iTunes. When you do that, it helps others find the podcast easier. Send your questions or comments to info@drgenevaspeaks.com.